So let's begin because it is 7. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's Bengal Club Library event. Our speaker, Neel Ghose, is one of the co-founders of the Robin Hood Army, described as a disruptive, startup that uses food as a medium to bring out the best of humanity at a community level. It is the Robin Hood Army is a volunteer-based organization which collects excess food from restaurants and distributes it to the less fortunate. In a little over 2 years, the Robin Hood Army has served over 5 million people through over 12,000 robins across 12 countries. The team for the Robin Hood Army is formed by a largely young group of professionals and students who do this in their free time. They come from extremely diverse backgrounds. There are students, lawyers, doctors, business people, teachers, government employees, and folks taking sabbaticals. They have a strict no funds approach, so growth in the Robin Hood Army is largely funneled through social media and partnerships. They have routinely collaborated with companies and media houses to channelize their resources to helping and generally spreading smiles to the underprivileged community. Some examples are bookmyshow.com, which helps the Robins take children who live on the street for movies and entertainment shows, and Uber, which provides transport to help mobilize food across cities. I'll hand over to Neel now, and just want to tell you before I do so, that while he's speaking, please type your questions in the chat box, which is at the bottom of your screen, and I shall read out some of them after the talk to him so that he can respond. Over to you, Neel.
Thank you so much for having me, Mr. Mukherjee.
Sure.
And I've been looking forward to this for a few weeks. I'm born and brought up in Kolkata, and I've done my schooling just down the road from Bengal Club and St. Xavier's. So very happy memories, though I haven't lived there for many years now. I think a couple of disclaimers before we start. The first, this is actually kind of quite a unique event. I'm used to having a lot of conversations and telling people about the Robin Hood Army. I'm not very used to doing that with my parents being in attendance. So if I am to, if you're not very impressed by the end of this, you know who to blame. And I think secondly, I think the more serious disclaimer is that I am a representative of the Robin Hood Army. The work we talk about, the work we do, the lives we touch, it is the work of 86,000 other volunteers who do it. And I just, like me and my co-founder Arushi, we happen to be the mouthpieces of this. So I think that's the one thing, like we get a lot of undue credit and praise for what we do, but actually it's work across like hundreds of cities and the people who are doing the work on the field. And we are very privileged to actually have a chance to talk to people about it and get people to join us. Maybe the way we'll structure the next 15-20 minutes is I will briefly talk to you about the Robin Hood Army journey, my specific journey with it. I'll show you some pictures and some videos because that kind of communicates the sense of what we do much better than words. And then I'd love it to be very, very interactive. I think it's much more fun, like responding to questions. It's much less of a sermon. So we'll probably, I'll probably wind up in like 20 minutes or so, and then we can probably get to questions and make it slightly more interactive, right? So I'll just share my screen quickly, and I'll talk through that. I'm hoping everyone can see my screen, correct?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So the Robin Hood Army actually started 6.5 years back. I was working for many years for the tech company Zomato, and my job there was I used to set up our international markets. So I would move for between 9 to 12 months in every new country, set up our team, build our clients and our business, and then move on to the next country. So this happened in, I believe I was there in June 2014 in Portugal. So I was living in Lisbon and I was setting up Zomato there, and I was setting up our team. And one of the things which we did when we launched was we did a lot of partnerships with local credible organizations. Those were days when we were not very well funded, so we had to think about ways we can grow in a new country without spending money. So partnership seems to be the way to go for that. Now, what we did was basically like we got in touch with this organization called ReFood. And what they do is really, really simple and really, really powerful. They collect surplus food from restaurants and they give it to the less fortunate through volunteers. And honestly, till then, I don't think I'd done anything really altruistic in my life. But I just found the idea really, really simple and really, really doable. So I spent some time with the founder. I spent some time with the team. I spent some time volunteering with them just to understand what are their processes. How do they go about distributing the food? How do they decide who to give the food to? So I came back to India in August 2014. And that's when we decided to give it a shot in Delhi with my friends Anand and Arushi. I'll just go to the next slide.
Just 1 second, Neel. By mistake, it seems like I'm sharing my screen, which I don't want to. So let me just stop that.
Sure, no worries.
Sir, you are not sharing your screen. You are actually.
All right. Okay, fine. Thank you. Please continue.
I think what's happening, Mr. Mukherjee said, we've served 66 million meals. We spread across 217 cities, and we are in 86,000. We have 86,000 different Robins. The idea is the same. We collect surplus food from restaurants and we give it to the less fortunate. Now, honestly, this is not about the numbers, but it's more about the journey, and it's more about like the many, many, many experiences and memories we've had while getting there. Now, the basic idea is, how do the Robins do this and what do they do? So I think the simplest way of showing that is I'll just run through a video, and I'm guessing everyone can see this. I'll just play this.
I'm a biotechnologist and I'm a Robin.
I'm a data analyst and I'm a Robin.
I'm a writer and I'm a Robin.
I am a risk manager and I am a Robin.
I'm a yoga teacher and I'm a Robin.
I'm a software engineer and I'm a Robin.
I'm a risk analyst and I'm a Robin. I'm an interior designer and I'm a Robin.
I'm an analyst and I'm a Robin.
I'm a writer and I'm a Robin.
I'm a software engineer and I'm a Robin.
So I think the best way to think about this is just a few members of the community who are trying to make a difference in their free time. Who are these folks? They are, as Mr. Mukherjee said, students, lawyers, doctors, engineers, retired folks who in their free time are basically collecting surplus food from restaurants and giving it to the less fortunate. Now, if you see, it's not just a distribution platform. If you saw the video, like it's actually spending time with the people you're serving to them, talking to them, making them laugh, taking selfies with them, and basically just humanizing the whole effort. Now, this is something which, when we started, we really didn't think through like what scale we want to achieve. But I remember in our first food drive and this was in South Delhi. I used to live in Green Park, so we were serving food under the Horse Khas flyover, and we assume that we have food for like 100 people, and we won't probably need more food than that. When we just looked around, we realized that there are thousands. And that's when we realized like they were under the flyover, they were on the streets, they were in front of Ames Hospital, there were orphanages around. And that's when we realized that, there are two ways of thinking about this. One is that, look, we do this on Sundays in our free time, feel good about it, and then keep it going once a week. Or we think about scaling about it disruptively, because the problem we're trying to address is always much, much, much larger than the solution we're giving. So that's when we started thinking about this like more like a startup. So our learnings in our professional jobs, which is probably in tech or consulting firms or wherever, we try to put it together and think of this as a well-oiled organization, just that there's no money involved. This is kind of our journey across different years. So when we started in 8 cities, and this was actually quite unique. I think I remember when we started sharing pictures of what we are doing on social media. And that's when like a few of my friends, actually friends from St. Xavier's or friends from like college, they actually reached out to me and said that, oh, tell us when you come into our city. And then we were kind of caught in a fix that do we wait till we get it perfectly right in Delhi? Or do we just fly down for the weekend to a Bombay, to a Calcutta, to a Hyderabad, or just get on a Skype call then and just explain to people how we do what we do? So in the hindsight, I'm so glad we took that option, because what happened was people who are much better than us started basically coming into the Robin Hood Army chapter and adopting their local communities. Now, if you see here, like there's some milestones. In 2016, we expanded our first international country. We went into Pakistan. Then we started something called the Robin Hood Academy, where we started teaching children in their free time. So these were milestones, and what happened was because it was so decentralized, people kept adopting the model and taking it to another level, which we could have never imagined ourselves. Now, how does this work structurally? It's hyperlocal. So what do I mean by that? So let's say Kolkata at this point will probably be 7 different chapters from when I last checked. So Tollygunj will have their own specific chapter. So in Tollygunj, the food will come from restaurants in Tollygunj. The volunteers will be residents in Tollygunj. And the less fortunate will be homeless people, orphanages, old age homes around Tollygunj. The idea is that you basically serve your immediate community. The only rule we have is that there's no money involved. Now, if I go down, like slowly, we've actually spread the word. This is kind of our city map. It's kind of stopped fitting in a map, so we've started making lists. And what we realized is that this is very scalable in countries which are very similar to us in terms of inequalities. So if you see the common thread between these countries, Uganda, Brazil, Philippines, Malaysia, is basically like very large inequalities, a section of community who want to do something and do about it but don't know how, and very high internet adoption rates. And I'll get to why internet adoption is a big part of what we do. Again, like this has grown completely organically. We've reached out to folks we know through work or through my business school who've actually noticed what we've done on social media, and then they've taken it into their cities. In fact, right now in Pakistan, in Karachi, the brand of the Robin Hood Army is probably even stronger than it is anywhere in India. So if a restaurant there has a Robin Hood Army sticker, they actually see that the business goes up because people want to go and like contribute to that restaurant. So now it almost makes a commercial reason for them to actually give the excess food to us. But the fundamental question is, how does it grow without funds? And like, how is this even possible? And more importantly, how is this even sustainable? Because I think when it started off, it was a passion project for all of us. Now it's become a responsibility. There are people across hundreds of cities who are depending on the Robin Hood Army for their next meal. And it's something where we really have to like take that responsibility really, really seriously, which is why like the way we structure our organization is all the more important. So again, social media and the press are our largest recruits, and that's how we spread the word. So if you see that a lot of like earlier it was like a lot of young people, now it's like people from all walks of life, all age groups, wearing green. We basically share these pictures across like social media, and that's how more and more Robins keep signing up. So in a given month, we have around 8 to 10,000 Robins who sign up every single month. If I remember right, this specific picture is from Kolkata itself. So if we have like a feature on the television, or if we have a talk or something, we put this up on social media, more people get to know about the cause. More people get to know that this is extremely accessible. You just need to give 3 hours of your week to be a part of this. And that's how they end up joining us. The interesting thing is, like, people think like what will be really our technology tools? Nothing, it's just WhatsApp. So we have these, like, this is what my WhatsApp looks like at any given point. So every single Robin Hood Army chapter or city has their own WhatsApp group, and we can conduct all coordination on this. We kind of gamify it. So I come from a slight sales background. So what we do is we have leaderboards. So here, if you see, like, if I zoom in, we basically talk about how many people were served in a certain week, and then we put it in reverse descending order. So Hyderabad is right on top, and they've served 24,000 meals. Lucknow is number 8, and they serve 2,064 meals. Now, what happened here is basically two things. One is that it's accountable. If someone puts a number, they are accountable for it, because this goes in social media, it goes on the website, it goes in WhatsApp groups. So no one can really like fib a number of and more importantly, it gamifies the system. So if someone is, let's say, number 12, and they see that they need a few more meals to like increase their food count to get into the top 10, they're more incentivized to do that. So WhatsApp is something which we really grow very rigorously to make sure the Robin Hood Army impact grows. But the most important part of what we do is our Robins, and like this is like the team which works, the team which does what they do. Like, that's what I'm most proud of. Now, who are these folks? Are these folks who are people who've got decades of experience? They know how to do social media. They know how to do charity for years? Not really. Just to run you through some stories. Our youngest city head is Muskan. She's all of 18 years old. She has single-handedly started our Uganda chapter and leads a team of 200 there. Rathi uncle is now at 61. He leads a team of 3,000 people in Pune. The unique thing about Rathi uncle is he does a food drive every single night of the year. So between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. in his part of Pune and Kharadi, he's always out on the streets with the team or otherwise, and no one sleeps, no one has slept hungry in that neighborhood for the last 3 years. Then there's people like Danya, who's a medical student. In fact, she just became a doctor as of last year. She leads our team in Karachi. And there's Umaji. Umaji is an interior designer, 53 years old. She leads our team in Hyderabad. And for those who watch Bahubali, she's like, people call her Maheshmati. She reminds them of that very strong lady character in Bahubali, who kind of is the ruler. So basically, it's people like you and me. We don't have an age group. We don't have a demographic. We don't have this thing. What we've seen is these are folks who have a bias for action. They want to make a difference, and they have strong local networks. So they basically come, they get introduced to the Robin Hood Army from our team. We have an expansion process by which we coach them on how to set up a chapter, how to use social media, how to basically conduct drives. And within 6 weeks, they start leading their own chapters. Now, the bigger part is we started as a medium or a tool to take excess food from restaurants and give it to the less fortunate. So what we were basically solving for was food wastage and hunger. But very slowly, what we realized is that while we're giving those meals, while we're like talking to people, we're getting to know the folks we're giving the meals to, and that's the bigger part. It's not charity, if I might say, it's community building. When I'm going to the streets and giving the food to someone, it's just like you and me. If I'm going to have a meal with you, I'm going to try to get to know you better. And that's basically the same ethos in the Robin Hood Army. So essentially, we've realized that this is a good way to get to know people. understand their problems, and figure out how we can make a difference through our limited resources. How does that work? One very key part is something I alluded to earlier, the Robin Hood Academy. Now, the Robin Hood Academy started completely by chance. So this started in Indore, where they started teaching children in their free time. Now, I come from a family of academics, and it made me really uncomfortable to take someone's responsibility of their education in their free time. But obviously, my co-founder, Arushi, she's smarter. So she was like, okay, you know what? You're looking at the input of teaching the children. Let's look at a very simple metric. How many kids can we put into school? So that's when we kind of revamped what the Robin Hood Academy means. And it's basically a bridge program to where we enable children with a 2-month course and we on weekends, and we enable them with basic education or in English and math. We make sure they have Aadhaar cards, and we basically mentor their parents as to why they need to send their kids to school. And we are basically a fillip or a conduit to take these kids and enroll them to schools. So right now, at last count, we have 7,300 students across 84 cities. What I'm really proud about is 1,763 of these kids have gone to school for the first time. As of us. Then we have these larger projects where we collaborate with different organizations to basically spread the word on hunger and get more and more people involved. So typically in Independence Day, we've partnered with folks like Uber or Zomato or ABP or Viacom, and these folks help us spread the word or contribute meals in the millions. And what we do is we activate thousands of Robins or thousands of volunteers who go out and give these meals and raise awareness to the hunger problem. You know, like we have no dearth of problems in India, but there are 194 million people who don't have 2 square meals a day. Now, what happens is it's very like, why did I never know this? Why do most people don't know about the stat? Is because hunger is not relatable. Like terrorism can happen to you, pollution can happen to you, COVID can happen to you, but hunger is very unlikely. But that's why it's something which is kind of always put in the back burner. And the idea behind what we do is to like, how do we spread the word that like, you know, hunger is a base-based problem, and the core responsibility of not just the government, but also society is to make sure everyone has just a couple of meals a day. Now, what we've also done is we've kind of like this happened like in 2017, I believe, when we joined forces with our teams in Pakistan, and we served 1 million meals across both sides of the border. Again, the question has often come to us that does it make sense to coordinate with a country which we might not have political friction with? My honest answer, it doesn't matter, and we don't care, because hunger is on both sides of the border. There are people who want to make a difference. This has nothing to do with politics. It never will be. If there are 3 rules in the Robin Hood Army, it's basically like everything else is decentralized. It's that we won't collect funds, we serve all religions, and we're apolitical. So we'll never align with any political party. Now, what happens because of that is we've got hardcore right-wingers in the Robin Hood Army who are very passionate about serving. We have a lot of people from the left, we have people who don't care. But the idea is, if you want to basically embrace a community where you basically want to help people who need it the most, this is the place to be in. Again, what are the micro incidents? And for me, like, you know, like right in the beginning, we talked about the number of cities we are in, the number of meals we serve. For me, that's a good to have. That gives us credibility. But what really matters are these stories which you see right now. So if you see the left, and I'm actually going to zoom this in again a bit. This gentleman here, he's in Ahmedabad. His name is Lakshman Bhai. So our Robins were out giving food at 1:30 in the morning in Ahmedabad with food left over from a wedding. They noticed this person sitting on a wheelchair, completely disabled, and people around him told us not to go near him. Now, the easy thing to do is to just leave his meal next to him and walk away, because by description, that's what the Robin Hood Army does. But what our Robin Hood Army did is they went home, they brought back some tools, they bathed him, they shaved him, they gave him a fresh set of clothes, they brushed his teeth here, and they also gave him a champi, and then they made sure that he had meals for the next few months. For me, that's the essence of the Robin Hood Army. That's why we do what we do, and that's what we mean by spreading the best of humanity using food as a medium. Food is a very simple way of getting to know someone, And then it's remarkable with the smallest of resources how you can make a difference to someone. You can see his expression here, and you can see his expression here. For us, that's our currency. That's why we do what we do. Other examples is in Pune. So here, what we did is there was one Robin called Dr. Sunavne, and he would feed, like he would come and basically serve with us. He realized in one of the clusters we serve, there are a lot of Robins who are senior citizens and who cannot see clearly. So what we went and did was, we went and we did a partnership with his hospital, where they organized for 50 free cataract surgeries. We took all these senior citizens from the cluster in our cars, spent half a day with them, where they got their cataract surgeries done. Out of those cataract surgeries, 50 people, 48 people improved their eyesight. 2 people could see again for the first time. That for us is what is the essence of the Robin Hood Army. And here again, like you see, like we talked about Book My Show, this is us partnering with them to take our kids to an amusement park. And again, like this is something which I don't think it's an achievement, but it definitely helps us get a lot of more partnerships. So the Robin Hood Army is something which is a Harvard case study. It's taught in business schools across the world. And the interesting thing, it's not taught as a social impact organization. It's taught as it's taught as a model on motivation without monetary benefits. And it's something which has helped us a lot in getting into new cities or new countries. And we hope that future generations of business folks who study this are actually kind of inspired to do something beyond their careers and serve society in their own way. Now, the one caveat that we always have is that we do this without any money, without raising any money. And this is a very core reason. I think what happens is, like, let's say Rathi uncle, we spoke about him. For him, the Robin Hood Army is not a central NGO with the founder sitting in Delhi and I reported to him. For him, it's his own baby. And why does he put his heart and soul into it? Because there's no money involved. For us, we can reach into 217 cities because we don't have any due diligence. We just have to see if someone is passionate about this, if they have the resources to grow the Robin Hood Army, and then we basically get into that chapter. We don't do due diligence. So sometimes the question might come, with no money, with no revenue, how can we grow, and like what kind of impact is that? And for that, every single year, we create our own balance sheet or our own financials. So this is our balance sheet of last year. If you see the debit column, rent is 0, wages 0, power maintenance 0, standard balance sheet items. So we launched 44 cities for food, which is the serving part, and 25 new cities for academy. This was in 2020 during COVID. We served 38 million meals. We enrolled 1,300 kids into school. And for us, this is the essence of what we do. It's called 1% done. 1% done is no matter how much we're growing, no matter how many accolades we're going, we have to keep reminding ourselves that it's never enough. And for that, there has to be just a hunger to keep growing and a hunger to not take ourselves too seriously and keep focusing on the problem at hand. So this is kind of our trends over the last 6 years in terms of the number of meals we serve. But the whole point is that we're barely scratching the surface of the hunger problem. This will only make a difference, like to our country, to like countries across wherever we are serving, when like millions of people are activated and actually serve and spend a couple of hours of their week in helping people then. I don't think it's the government's problem. I don't think it's only NGO's problem. I think it's all our problem. And that's why I think like the wider goal of what we do and the caveat is that how do we spread awareness to like lakhs of people to actually come in their free time and serve people who need them the most. I think I'll wind off with a quick video. And this was basically something which we did during the COVID time. And I think this is when there was like heavy reverse migration and people were going back to their families, and like hunger was the starkest problem within COVID. So that's when we mobilized help between corporates and civic society and the press, and we basically attempted to serve 30 million meals through 3 months. I'll just show you how that looks.
Ramesh, the sharing is off. Please reshare
Oh,
your screen.
sorry, I'll just share it again. You can see it. Thank you for flagging. Yep. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yeah. Please ignore the cricket videos on the left of YouTube. That's suggestions for me.
Dream of a world where peace is king and all good things are in supply. Reaching to the heavens, hands up high, I do my best to grasp the sky. When we can change the world, we can change the world. We can change the course within a single generation. Standing up for freedom, spreading hope, nation to nation. We can change the world. We can change the world. It doesn't have to be so it is or how it's been. Instead of looking out, we need to turn and look within. We can change the world.
We didn't end up serving 30 million people. We managed 23.2 million meals. But hopefully, for us, we still hope this is very, very early days. We hope our partnerships at a very early stage, and we hope we can get many, many more sections of society involved in basically serving people who need it. We can take a pause right now, and I'm happy to take questions or have a conversation around this.
Yes, sure. There are lots of questions in the box, actually. Let me start off with my friend and fellow member, Sumit Ray. Hi, Neel. This is so interesting and inspiring. I see you have a setup in Uganda. Are there any plans to expand in Ethiopia? If so, how do I go about setting this up in Addis Ababa? He's now in Ethiopia.
Oh, perfect. That's great to know, Mr. Ray. I think for us, we are focusing on three specific geographies: South Asia, Africa, and Latin America. That probably covers around 90% of the world's hunger problem. So, Mr. Ray, what you can do is you can mail me on neel@robinhoodarmy.com, and what I'll do is I'll put you in touch with our expansion team. So what they do is literally over Zoom, they will coach you on how to scout for the people who we serve. What are the kind of partnerships we do? How do we basically engage and talk to restaurants? And ultimately, what is the first few members of a core team? And what are their responsibilities? Again, one would think that you need a full time to do this, but not really. All of us do this in our free time. So for a regular Robin, it takes around 3 hours a week. For people who are kind of setting things up from scratch, it takes around probably anything between 10 to 20 hours a week.
Great. Next one by Dr. Devashish Dotto. Marvelous effort. What challenges do you see going forward?
Honestly, quite a few. I think the one big challenge is that because it's so decentralized, earlier there were people within our network who were setting it up, right? People who we know, we studied with, we work with. Now it's almost come to a point that there's a playbook, and we've never really met someone who's setting it up in some small town in Kapurthala or wherever in Punjab. Now, what happens is that there's a chance that there could be a freak incident. It could be someone collecting money in the name of the organization and profiting from it. It could be someone, let's say, misbehaving with a child. And I think like it takes 6 years or 6.5 years to build a reputation. That can go in one night. And for me, like that's something which we obsess about. And we're like, as much as we obsess about growth, we're like, what is that one black swan incident which can like change the trajectory of the Robin Army overnight? So I think that's one fundamental problem. The other one is, I think, just while we grow because there's no money, it's also counterintuitive to our growth, because I would love to do this like 7 days a week, 15 hours a day, and like take a salary and do this for myself. But I think people put in their heart and soul into this because no one's making a buck. So we have to do this in coordination with our jobs, in coordination with our personal lives, that often sometimes leads to a lot of sacrifices. And speaking for everyone in the Robin Hood Army, I see there's someone who says, I'm proud to be a Robin. So I'm guessing you know what I'm talking about here. But I think if we had the luxury to do this all the time, I think we could have grown much faster. So that's something which is also, I would say, a challenge, and we need to figure out how to navigate around that.
Yes, great. I'm going to club two questions together from Mr. Pradeep Kakkar and Professor Uma Dasgupta. They're kind of asking the same question. Professor Dasgupta is asking, once you start giving food to someone, would you continue to do this each and every day without stopping? And Mr. Kakkar's question is, if Tollygunge Robins have 10 meals tonight, will they go back to the people that they fed yesterday, or find new needy ones who haven't been helped at all?
No, it's a very good question. And honestly, there's not one answer to that. I think, again, like what happens is like, because Robin Hood Army is really decentralized, we enable the cities to make their own rules depending on what they believe the need in the local communities are. Now, one major part of what we do is called scouting. And scouting basically means identifying the people who need the food the most. So the simplest way of scouting was what Anand, me and Arushi used to do like 6 years back. Let's say in Outer Ring Road, we see that there are different flyovers, and each of them have like around families of around 25, 30 people sleeping under them. So if there are 5 flyovers, we know we have to have food for 150 people. Similarly, then it got a little more sophisticated. We did partnerships with local NGOs or state governments who've already mapped out the people in need, and they have a much better sense of who needs the food the most. Again, like sometimes we realize that like people who need the food might not be people necessarily who are living there. For example, let's say in AIIMS in Delhi, a lot of people come from across the country for free medical treatment, but because they can't afford it, they're living for weeks outside in the hospital. So you have cancer patients who are living on the footpaths, and they probably need the food more than a local inhabitant. So we lead the scouting to the local teams. We give them the best practices on how to go about it. And we leave that decision to them, that should they go back and give meals to the same people who need it, or should they go constantly and look for people who need it more. So again, case in point being, let's say in Bombay, I don't think hunger is a very, very chronic problem in the city. But if you move even 30 kilometers outside Bombay, there are villages there which are literally like below poverty line, and a lot of people are severely malnutrition, just 30 kilometers away from the city. So I think one endeavor for the Robin Hood Army is constantly scouting people who need the help the most. I understand there's an underlying question here. People are too polite to put it out, is that, are you making people more dependent? The answer is, I don't know. But it's also that the thing is that if someone is like hungry, the least we can do is make sure they're relieved for the night. And that's where we come in and we give the food. Our job is not to like change like the trajectory of the country, but our job is to like give relief to people who need it. And through initiatives like the Robin Hood Academy, empower their next generation with tools like education, so that they can start basically empowering their families and giving back, and start that circle of giving back.
Right, Neel, can you just spell out your email ID for me, because some people are asking for it to be put in the chat box. So
I'll just
do that.
I'll put it in here.
Yeah, all right, great.
It's just my name, Neel NEEL at robinhoodarmy.com.
Have you typed it in, or should I?
I have.
You already have.
I have. Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to again ask 2 different questions, because I think you might have sort of the same answer for both of them. One is from Shujata Roy, who is asking, I was looking at the chapters in Kolkata on FB. Currently, there is none at Ballygunge. Do you have plans of starting one at Ballygunge? And then the other from Paramita Vishwas, who says, hi, I'm 15 years old from Sevenoaks in England and would love to help out. Would this be possible?
Sure, sure. No, so I think with respect to, like, I think in Kolkata, the decision to like go into more, like the way we think about expansion is, the more Robins join from a certain neighborhood, then we break out and we make smaller chapters so that we can serve the major community. So if they're in, I think at last count we have 2 different chapters in South Kolkata, and again you can like easily sign up on robinhodarmy.com/join. I'll put that link also here. Once you do that, what happens is you get a link to a WhatsApp group. The WhatsApp group will have details of the next drive, so you can just land up there. Now what happens is, if like let's say there are more than 10 people or 15 people are coming from Baliganj itself, they can put forward the idea to the city rep, which is that can we start our own chapter and like basically start servicing people in our own community. So I think that's the best way to go about it. Again, like I suggest like this, like use this link a lot, robinhodarmy.com/join. With respect to the other, what was the name, sorry, of the girl, the 15-year-old?
Paramita from Sevenoaks in England.
God, Paramita, very, very impressive. I think when I was 15 years old, I would have never done something like this. So hats off to you. The only thing though, Paramita, is that our model is built for developing countries. Now, what do I mean by that? We have, because there's no money involved, we don't have any storage facilities, we don't have any insurance, and we don't have any, we don't have the fundamental like things which are required for a registered NGO in a developed country to basically get started and scale. So even if you can do it at a really small scale, it will be difficult to kind of scale beyond a certain amount of this thing without funds. So that's why we made a kind of conscious decision to focus on the pockets of the world where this is very easily scalable. But what you can very easily do is, like, again, on the website, there's a do-it-yourself kit as to how we basically go about building the Robin Hood Army. And you can use that and start it of your own accord in Sevenoaks. And I'm sure there's enough of a need for people to like appreciate and like join you.
Right. Question from Joyati. Do you have any plans of expanding your activities to the rural poor?
No, that's a very, very good question. And I think we started this last Independence Day. And again, like if you look at the data, and it's something which we keep obsessing about, we look at the data every time we take a decision. Right now, 194 million people, 7,000 people who die of hunger every single day in India. 76% of that comes from rural India. So to a certain extent, we are only servicing the 24%. But now the bigger challenge is, how do we create an ecosystem by which we can connect to people sitting in Delhi or Calcutta or whatever. And so I think the next phase of what we are launching, and it's called Rural Connect, is partnerships with logistics companies. So folks like grofers, folks like trucking companies who are anyway basically traversing through those paths, and we collect the food or we collect the grains, and through those strategic partnerships, we transfer food to people who need it most. We piloted it for the first time in Independence Day. We served around 87 villages. Now we're trying to figure out how can we do this on a week-on-week basis and then ultimately on a day-on-day basis.
Great, great. A question from Smita. How do the Robins control a crowd larger than the food resources available? And DK Khaitan has also asked, is there sometimes, in the same vein, is there sometimes some disappointments?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's something which comes with what we do. I think what happens is being prepared is really important. So by being prepared, I mean, like when you're scouting, you've kind of mapped out how many people are there in each cluster. Now, Kolkata is still a relatively polite and nice place, but if I go to Delhi with food for 100 people in a cluster with 500 people, for 500, I will be mobbed and beaten up. So it's very, very important for us to actually like map out exactly how many people are there in each specific cluster, and then make sure we have at least that many meals, if not more. There are times, obviously, when we still don't have enough, and then we explain to them in a very humble way that, look, we're doing this in our free time. And if we have not been able to serve you, we'll come back and we'll try to do the best we can. but this is the best we can do tonight. So again, there are disappointments, and again, like I think the one thing I'd like to call out is that what I've shown in the deck is the best of the Robin Hood Army. Like any other large organization, we have our issues. Like we have folks coming from all walks of life. When people are very, very passionate, they will obviously have different takes, and that leads to a lot of friction and sometimes fights. So I think for that we have something called Citizens First. Citizens First, Robins Last. We've literally taken it off to the Indian Army. So what that means is that let's say Mr. Mukherjee and me are Robins, and we are arguing about, let's say, the quality of the food we are serving our children, or what we are doing, or what specific NGOs we are partnering with. Then we should thrash it out for hours until one of us is completely convinced. But if Mr. Mukherjee and me are arguing about who should do an interview on radio, then we are setting ourselves up for mediocrity. So I think that's something which we put in our culture and we use as like a standard line, which is citizens first. If you're ever having a disagreement, ask yourself, are you having that disagreement because of service, or are you having that disagreement because of yourself? And if it's the latter, then just like walk away from that, because that's not why we're doing what we're doing.
All right, here's the last question from Mr. Hirok Shen. Do you give one meal a day to each beneficiary or more than one meal?
Again, that's something which depends city on city, chapter on chapter. I think in some cases, we actually give up to 2 meals a day. In some cases, we give like probably 2 meals a week. But it depends on like basically the maturity of the chapter and how long it's been in existence. And the endeavor is to give as many meals as we can to the people who need most.
All right, Neel, that's the end of questions. But I must tell you that I've never seen a chat box so full of compliments. Let me just speed read certain words from comments made by a lot of people. Marvelous, inspiring, remarkable, passionate, absolutely amazing, kudos, overwhelmed, awesome concept, congratulations. So you get the general idea about how completely impressed with you all our viewers have been.
Now, going back to my first point, Mr. Mukherjee, like while it's a huge ego massage to listen to this, honestly, it belongs completely to the team. There are people right now while we speak, while I'm sitting here and talking to you guys who are out there and giving the food, and I will definitely convey your wishes to them, because they're the ones who deserve it.
Thank you very much. And now let me call upon my colleague, Dr. Debashish Dutta, on the Library Committee. It is through his offices that your talk was made possible today, as you know. Right. So let me request him to deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Sarojesh. Wonderful evening, Neel. On behalf of Bengal Club and Bengal Club Library Subcommittee, I extend a very hearty vote of thanks to you for a marvelous talk and sharing your experiences with us. It was really nice. Would also like to thank Sarojesh, as usual, conducting the sort of talk very nicely. And thanks to all the members of the club on a midweek for your participation. I think we had quite a good participation today, and for your interactions to make this evening memorable. Thank you again, Neel. We wish you all the best for your future endeavors. Thank you very much. Sarojesh.
Thank you so much.
Good evening. Good night.
Good night. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.